So ladies, thank you so much for being with us today. Let me just ask you, if you would, just tell us a bit about who you are, what you do. That would be a great start. Helen, I'll start with you.
Hi, my name is Helen Fischle, and I am a social work educator. I am a mother, I am a wife, and I am currently in school again. And I
What do
have,
you mean in school, Helen?
Yeah, what you
School?
doing?
What
You
do you
getting
mean
a
in
high school diploma?
school?
What you doing?
I am pursuing a doctoral
Woo!
degree. And I have been in social work education for over 20 years now.
Yes.
Mm-mm.
You started, I tell people the lie that I started when I was 12. Thank you, Helen. Cathy.
Well, I'm Cathy Ann Goodrich. When I came to Oakwood, by the time I graduated, I was Cathy Ann Goodrich Purnell.
Yeah.
Married to Frank, 24 years. I'm a mother, just like Helen said too. I attended Oakwood, like everybody. This is where I met everybody. Actually, I met Helen before that in London. I am in social work. Well, I was in social work education since 2000, 2004. That's when I got my start in social work education. I've recently transitioned into a new role as a program coordinator for inclusive teaching and learning. I'm also a diversity consultant, working with the president university to help develop a community of belonging. And I'm an instructional designer as well. So I wear a couple of hats and coach people who are transitioning or figuring out purpose. That's me, and I have a dog.
Grizzly.
Grizzly.
I'm Dr. Kesslin Braids Dennis. I am a wife, a mother, and I am an entrepreneur. I'm an educational entrepreneur, owner of the PhD Consultants, where I help doctoral students get in, through, and out of doctoral programs so they can leverage, save money and time, and leverage their education and their experience to make a dynamic difference in the world. Really, that's why I do all that I do. The goal is to make a difference in the world. And this platform is what I'm using this month of October, Domestic Violence Awareness Month, to make a difference as it relates to domestic violence awareness. This has been a part of my life as a social work educator for over 20 years now. And I am delighted to have this platform to share information with my colleagues, to you and with you about domestic violence. And so we are here today to expand what we already know about domestic violence.
Thank you. And I can publicly say thank you to you, Dr. Kesslin Braids Dennis, as you walked me through concept to completion.
Yes.
From where I was to Dr. Cathy Goodrich Purnell, because you read that dissertation, you tore it up and you gave it back and made me fix stuff before it went to the chair. And I sit here today as a result of that. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to do the same for our sister Helen.
Yes.
Will graduate with her doctoral degree.
Yes.
This is Dr. Kesslin with the PhD Consultants. And as you know, every October I do something to kind of bring awareness to the fact that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. There are millions of people who are killed every year as a result of domestic violence. The statistics you'll learn more about throughout the month. Follow me on Facebook and you'll learn something about domestic violence awareness every day. Every day this month, I'm posting something about domestic violence, but every week I have the privilege of talking to advocates, of talking to researchers, of talking to survivors of domestic violence. And on this first production, I am delighted to have my friends, my colleagues, my sisters in the work, minus one, she couldn't be with us today. But I'm delighted to start this conversation about relationships, realities, and research with my sister girls, Dr. Cathy Goodrich Purnell, wave Dr. Purnell,
Hello.
and Miss Helen Fischle. These sister girls have been with me for the last, how long, ladies? 20, 25 years?
Since 1994 for me.
Yeah, around that.
1994. We have been together doing this work since 1994. Wow, we have traveled, we've presented, we have been overseas virtually, thanks to Helen. We have done so much as it relates to domestic violence. So ladies, I just want to thank you for sharing this time with me today and for sharing this work over the last 25 years. You ladies are awesome. You really are. So thank you. Today, on this first installment of Relationships, Realities, and Research, we're just going to talk, ladies, about how we got started in this work, some of the wonderful work that we have done, and the relevance of research as it relates to domestic violence. So, Helen, I'm going to put you on the spot first. And if you would just tell us about how we got started, specifically from just our work together at Oakwood.
So I think I think each of us in our own way have done some type of work to help women and survivors of domestic violence just because we are social workers. But if I was to say a specific start date, I would say it was with the grant that we got from the Department of Health and Human Services that was specifically focused on addressing domestic violence in the African American and Latinx community in North Alabama. And so I was hired on to be a program coordinator for the grant through Oakwood University, and Dr. Edith Fraser asked me to work as a program coordinator for the grant. So that was my official entry into the work of advocacy and really understanding how prevalent domestic violence was, but also looking at the issue of domestic violence, intimate partner violence within the African community, within the African American community, and also within the Latinx community.
Yeah, and some of our work was absolutely amazing. Helen, I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, but you were a fearless leader in this work. The department helped to write the grant, but you really took charge. You really took charge, didn't she, Cathy?
Just the girl.
You really took charge in just moving us forward. I'll be honest and tell you that I'd heard rumors about people that I know being in domestic violence relationships, but my awareness, really firsthand awareness of DV came as a result of you saying, come on, Kesslin, we're going to present here. We're going to do this. Can you go with me and do this focus group? It was your leadership that started my work in DV. So thank you. I don't know if I've ever said that.
Said it now.
Thank you.
I used to say that, and thank you, Keslin and Cathy and Renee. I know Renee's not here, but I always used to, I remember when we used to do a lot of presentations, Keslin, I used to say, we are partners in fighting crime. That's how I often introduced our presentations. But you're so right. It was a real eye-opener. Doing the grant and speaking with community leaders, it was just such an eye-opener to what was really going on, not only in the community, but also in our churches, right? In our church, in our faith community, because that was one of the main interventions that we were looking at and we're trying to address was how can the faith community work to prevent domestic violence and to educate people. And I just remember when when I would do presentations or when we would do presentations, people coming up to us and saying, I have never heard a pastor preach about domestic violence. So the work that we were doing was really groundbreaking at that time.
Absolutely. And while you hear about it, sometimes it's different when you experience it vicariously. People you know have been impacted.
Right.
And for me, that was that was the turning point for me in this work. Cathy, what do you think now that we're talking about it and reflecting back on all those years ago when that one incident kind of took place? If you could take us back to that space for you and what it did for you in terms of this.
Sure. And, and I'm thinking about your initial question around, what was it that got us moving in this work? And I think if some of us are honest, me, myself, thinking about my own childhood, although there are things I don't remember, my family will recount. But guess what? The body and the central nervous system remembers it. So I carry that trauma of what some of my mother's own experience in living with with domestic violence. But going back to the situation you just mentioned, I remember it like yesterday. Yeah. And I remember we were in a space at that time, we were numb. And I remember saying, we've got to do something. So, and at the time we were already a social service agency. We were then AIM, Adventist Ministry. Yes. Renee, Cathy, Helen, and Keslin. So we reached out to Dr. Edith, who said, okay, you come to my home, I will cook for you all. And
she cooks marvelously.
And she had the fireplace going for us as well. She just set the whole environment. And she just let us process what we were feeling, what we thought. And then the question, Edith will always say, now what? What do we do? Yeah. And I remember us saying, well, we have to provide some type of support. And we need to be proactive and not wait. We need to be able to say, here we are. We're all experienced and qualified professionals, social workers at that, and we want to provide help. Yeah. And I think those early movements that became the catalyst for the rest of the work that we did. And I remembered, and we'll get to that later, how the acronym for S.T.A.R.T developed. It was in my home. We were sitting in my home and I was changing Kafan's diaper and Helen was just saying, S, boom, T, boom. We were like, yeah, this, no, not that, this, but we'll get there. But we were on fire. This wasn't just an act of advocacy for us. It was ministry, and it still is ministry for us. And we're kind of quiet, laid back people. So we work behind the scenes quite efficiently, but powerful because of the God that moves in and within us.
Can I add to that? I think one of the things that was really powerful that came out for me out of the work that we did was when a church called us up and said, can you help us work on a policy to address domestic violence in our church? And we kind of drew up a plan of action steps. Go to step 1. If this is happening, go to step 2. And that's really what we were looking for, was for churches to develop some type of formal policy on how they would address domestic violence, how they would help somebody who was going through it. And so that was really powerful to me when our services and our expertise was sought out by a local church to help address this issue.
And I remember us doing marriage ministry before this.
Yes.
Right.
Remember when we would plan marriage retreat?
Yes.
That's right. At Guntersville. And we had how many couples? Was it over 60? We had every couple at Madison Mission and from some of the local churches. And we were like, you weren't married yet. Renee wasn't married yet. Helen and I were like early birds in this. We had no flipping clue what we were doing, but we were like, yeah, let's do a marriage.
Yes.
And it worked. But even then, I don't think we talked as much about unhealthy relationships in this way.
No. We
were very focused on empowering people and individuals, but we didn't talk about DV because you had experience, but we'd never seen it We've never seen it. Yes. We never had to live through it for us.
It did.
We've been doing this for all this time.
It did. And here's the powerful thing, as you said, we had no clue what the nuances were in
Yes.
some of the relationships,
Yes.
right? We have no clue, but yet we were used to provide intervention, support, encouragement, safe spaces, resources
Yeah.
for couples who we didn't know
Yes.
what they were going through.
Yes.
And we
And
had,
now that we know the stats, someone in that room of that 60 couples, someone we know was experiencing DV.
absolutely, but not just them. See, when we think of DV as well, we often think marital relationships or, relationships, but now I'm a mother to grown, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds. You look at some of their own experiences and you want to make sure that they're empowered to understand what those nuances are in
Absolutely.
relationships. And I actually posted your little icon of that you made today, because people, I think for us, we just think, oh, this stuff only happens in marriages, and you miss the red flags in your interactions with known and unknown folk.
Absolutely. Let me, I was pulling up on my phone what I posted yesterday and
Mhm.
today. So let me just share it. This is, some people may not really understand what DV is. And so let me just provide a definition that I posted. Domestic violence is the willful, systematic pattern of intimidation, assault, battery, manipulation, and coercion. It can be sexually, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Yes,
Next
that one.
week's
That's
discussion.
a whole.
Yeah, that's a whole
So
nother.
that's going to be a whole
whole
next week,
nother
we're
series.
talking about domestic violence in faith communities. So spiritually, financially, psychologically, all of that to assert power and control over another person. It can be in a family or in a personal relationship. It does not have to be in marriage. It could be during dating. It could be amongst something that happens amongst friends that are more than friends, people who are in situations and entanglements, right?
Yes.
Domestic violence can show itself anywhere. This is what I posted today. Domestic violence involves any action or threat of action. That's important. An action or threat of action intended to frighten, threaten, coerce, manipulate, blame, intimidate, humiliate, harm, terrorize, or injure someone physically, emotionally, sexually, psychologically, economically, and or spiritually.
Yes.
Oftentimes when we think about DV, we think about physical abuse. And that is a part of it, the shoving, the pushing, but it's so much more than that. It really emanates from a power and control need or desire, and it can show itself in any way.
But I do know that, and Helen is really good at helping to keep me current with this. Sometimes you're fussing about a dynamic, and Helen will say, it's this, and you need to be careful. Such as if somebody is gaslighting or seeking to isolate and pound an opinion into your head, unfortunately, sometimes the real sensitive, kind-natured empaths get caught up in situations that they wonder, how in the world did I get here? Certain people groom individuals like that and hope to control how they think, feel, and hopefully how they will act. I think of Gabby, the young lady that's, was traveling RVing with her boyfriend, right? And there's just something not right about that whole situation, but that's one of many situations. When I don't know if you've seen the video of her in the back of the police car. Have you seen it?
No.
Yeah, I saw some of it, yes.
The fear in her whole entire body. And you wonder, when did she notice that something wasn't quite right with this relationship? And did anyone else notice and say anything? So I would just say that we just have to be mindful of how we react around someone. Are we feeling as though our will is being, sucked out of us, that we don't have the ability to think, or we lose the ability to be independent? We begin to change and not quite the same person we used to be, and we're becoming more um, of a we're becoming more reactionary to a particular person. We're giving them quite a bit of our power in our thoughts, in our deeds, and our actions. So we need to be mindful of that as well, because you lose a sense of who you are when
Yeah,
you're around someone who's very good at what they do.
very good. Let's talk about some more red flags. Cathy, you mentioned some of them. We talked about age difference, substance abuse, a pattern of substance abuse, a pattern of not being able to, I won't say not being able to control, but a power of not controlling one's attitude, temperament, being explosive in nature. It doesn't start off that way though. It
Right.
doesn't start off that way. It starts off as someone who wants to spend all of their time with you, someone who wants to um, uh, endear you with
Mhm.
sweet everythings that mean absolutely nothing. Someone who tries to buy you the world. And then it may be a small request, and then another larger request that feels uncomfortable, but because we call it grooming, right?
Yes.
They've groomed you, then you're in the custom of wanting to be kind and to give back. And before you know it, that person has more power than you do, than you think you do. And all of the signs that were hidden before, the
Mhm.
history of abuse, carrying arms, a history of violence, and other red flags, they surface over time. So
Mhm.
the old folk used to say you need to date a person for at least 1 year so you can see them in all seasons of life,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
They also
Yes.
say it takes time for that mask to fall. So
Yes.
only time can reveal what's behind the mask. But a person who's in trying to have power and control, they want to marry quickly. They
Yes.
want to move very quickly. They
Which
want to be intimate with you very quickly. They want to move quickly so that before you can see the mask fall, they've got you in their grasp.
yes.
So
Yes.
just some things to be aware of. The red flags are real. Kathy, you were going to say
They
something.
are. I mean, you were saying that, once upon a time it was, our older folk would say, you spend a year with someone, or, drop a pot on their foot and see what they do. But in Caribbean, in my communities, we'll say, my spirit don't take to him. Something ain't right. Always say trust your gut, trust your spirit, because I tell you what, I have learned. You know me. I'll dream about you and I'll call you at 2 a.m. and hey.
I'm a
But
witness.
right. So I think we also need to pay attention, because God is merciful and He will warn you.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not right. You feel it, you sense it
Yeah.
if you're in tune.
And
But
I think for some, especially for women, for some women, is that this guy's paying you a lot of attention, and it's really cute at first. You're like, wow, he's paying me a lot of attention. He always wants to go out with me. He wants to spend money on me, but that's just a way of isolating you more and more from your
yeah,
friends and from your family. And then, I've heard of women getting married, and then on the wedding night, that sweet person turns into another character. So we have that Jekyll and Hyde personality going on, and they're just like, what on earth did I get myself into? And sometimes, because they've isolated family and friends, they've been so isolated, and when family were trying to tell them something, they didn't want to hear it. And now they're married, and people have, been pushed to the side, and now they they find themselves having to reach out to people who have been, pushed away because of this abusive relationship. So I have seen where that has happened. But as they say, love can be blinding, and it can blind us to what's really in front of us.
sure
Absolutely.
can.
I just thought about some other red flags, warning signs that we don't often think about. But someone who's cruel to animals,
Oh, God.
Yes, yes.
animal cruelty is a sign. And someone who destroys the things that are precious to you. It could be pictures, it could be um, your favorite CD, or it could be whatever that's precious to you. They don't care about it. They destroy it. Anything that is can be used to manipulate and coerce you is what this
Yeah.
perpetrator will do.
And I think in this day and age, things have changed even more from when we started out in this work because of technology.
Yes,
So
I was
now
gonna
we
say,
Yeah.
have cyber stalking. I've heard of cases where a husband and wife could be separated, living in separate houses, but the husband is able to control the lighting, the heat, and terrorize their spouse through technology, switching
smear their
things on
name.
and off, cameras placed around the house, and so technology has added to the destruction that can now be caused in these abusive relationships.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I know, I mean, we haven't spoken about that yet, but the pandemic has certainly
Oh yes.
brought out so much in
Absolutely.
that's nothing. But listen, I've got this, I pulled up because there are so many red flags. I could go on. I'll just read a few if that's okay.
Sure, sure.
Embarrassing or putting you down in public, looking at you or acting in ways that scare you, controlling who you see or where you go or what you do, keeping you or discouraging you from seeing your friends or family members, taking your money or refusing to give you money, preventing you from making your own decisions, telling you that you're a bad person. Let's see, destroying your property or threatening to hurt or kill you. But of course, people don't start out that way, as you said, Helen, but there are these little things.
Yes.
Listen, man, I always say, make sure you get good eye contact with someone, because the eyes tell you. For me, anyway, I like to look at people dead in their retina because I get a read on you and then I get a sense about you. And I think we don't talk enough about those types of people skills, and tapping into those spiritual gifts that we have. Because God is not just going to leave us out there to deal with crazy. I personally don't believe that. I think we need to nurture that. But as you say, sometimes we're eager. We just genuinely, people are good at what they do.
Yeah. And I think too, Cathy, looking at family history.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
yeah.
How did I miss that? Yes.
Yeah, looking at family history, is there a history of abuse on both sides? Because if I've seen many women who have grown up in an abusive household, and so they may see those red flags, but they don't really stand out to them because they've grown
They're
up around
normalized.
it.
Yeah.
Right, become normalized. Right, it could be on both sides of the relationship, and there is domestic violence in same-sex relationships as well.
Absolutely.
So let's not forget
And
that.
men can be victims, survivors of domestic violence.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Right. So home environment, the community that you grew up in, how did the police respond to it? What did you see as you walked to school? Was it just commonplace where you grew up? That can all impact how we view it and how we respond to it.
Yeah.
And you know what? As you're talking, I'm remembering, growing up in, a West Indian environment. And, sometimes you remember it's really hot outside. Why on earth is that person wearing all these long sleeve clothes and dark glasses in a church that's not well lit?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You pick
Right.
up on things when you're young and you don't quite understand what you're looking at or why.
Mm-hmm.
And then you grow up and you put 2 and 2 together and get 20. Like, that's what was going on. But, church never really addressed. I don't ever recall hearing anything about intimate partner violence, domestic violence being spoken about when I was growing up.
So that takes us to research, right? That takes us to research. And we did research through the grant. 2 things about research. one, we did research through the grant and developed what Cathy referred to earlier as the S.T.A.R.T model. The S.T.A.R.T model is a prevention, psychoeducational prevention and intervention program model that is used. We developed it to use with domestic violence awareness. Since then, we have expanded it and used it with so many other situations that require education and intervention. But just to talk about it a bit, anybody want to jump in and go through what S.T.A.R.T means? We do trainings on this. Listen, we cannot give it justice in this next 2 minutes. We actually do half day, full day, weekend trainings for anybody who wants to learn more about domestic violence and other types of trauma, how to address it. But anybody want to jump in and just take us through?
I say Helen because
it was her baby.
I remember changing Kavan's nappy diaper. Yeah. We were in my home and we were trying to figure out, how can we help? Yeah. How can we make this relevant? Yeah. How can we simplify this for the communities that we're working with? And Helen was like, acronyms always work.
She's just brilliant. Anyway.
The acronyms always work. So we were jumping in and like, I know, let's start with S.T.A.R.T.
S.T.A.R.T.
So I'll give it to you, Helen.
So the S in S.T.A.R.T. is for to shatter the silence. Just, first acknowledging that domestic violence exists, abuse exists, acknowledging your views on it, your experience with it, doing that self-reflection, and just taking a look at the issue and how it has played out in your community, in your life, and not ignoring the horse on the table, know. Then we have T is to talk about it. So now that I've acknowledged it in my own personal life, let me talk about it. Let me start a conversation about it with others. Yes.
Can I just say, for shatter the silence, remember we said you have made a decision that you will be silent no more. That's right. It. This ain't my secret. I'm going to put you on blast. So you've got to that place where you've made up in your mind, I am putting you on blast. Go ahead.
And then you
right. And so now we're going to talk about it.
In parentheses, right?
Right.
Because for so long it's been taboo.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's to shatter the silence. We're going to have this uncomfortable conversation, So then talk about it. Talk about it in groups. Talk about it in church. It could be writing about it, and so having that conversation, looking at the data, looking at the research that is out there, looking at the statistics. And then A is for alert the public, alert others. All right. So now that we've recognized it, we've talked about it, how do we let others know about domestic violence, in intimate partner violence? Creating public service announcements, creating brochures, not only creating it, but actually giving the brochures out, and leaving brochures in the women's bathroom at church, so alerting others. And then R is for referring. So referring, because we don't know everything. And so sometimes we just need to refer somebody who's going through a domestic violence situation to a shelter, a crisis service social agency, referring them to the police. It could, to a social worker. But knowing what resources are out there and knowing the numbers to those resources, right? I remember learning the crisis service agency hotline number off by heart and being able to give that number out to others.
Can you give it now, Helen?
So for Huntsville, here in Huntsville, it's 716-1000.
Yes. And then T, your last T.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm going to look up the national number because I do want to.
Okay. And then for T is to train others, to continue to train others in yourself.
Yes.
All right. So constantly, looking out to train other people, to, get those continuing certifications, go to workshops, go to conferences, read books, and so on.
Yeah.
So, training yourself and others
Mhm.
in the area of domestic violence and intimate partner violence.
And you know what I want to say too? I'm just remembering at the time when the church we were in recognized what we were offering. And do you remember we were going to take on, or we had an intern, a minister, minister in training. We at least talked about it, but I'm not sure I talked about it. But we were on fire. We were ready, right? And we probably need to go back and revamp some things and use this empowerment approach to help people, because it's rough right now.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Right.
But what are we waiting for? Because remember, I always say, how many more people need to die before they hear about S.T.A.R.T?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to be hearing more about S.T.A.R.T, and you're going to be hearing more about the resources that this group is going to be providing. Let me leave you with the National Domestic Violence Hotline number, 1-800-799-SAFE. 1-800-799-SAFE. That's the number in this country, 1-800-799-SAFE. I believe those last four numbers are 7233. If you have need, there is support there. We are all, Dr. Cathy and Purnell, Miss Helen Fischle, Miss Renee Fentress, who wasn't able to be with us today, but has been a crucial part of this team, and myself. We are here to support you always. And for those of you who are doing research, please know that there is research that continues to be needed. My research was on domestic violence in African American communities. I wanted to know African American clergy's perspectives and experiences with domestic violence. Please know that sometimes clergy don't preach about it because they're still dealing with their own issues, their own experiences, whether in childhood or in adulthood, but clergy have had experiences. If you are a member of the clergy, if you lead a faith community, please reach out to any of us. We will be happy to provide support for you and your congregation. Please, please, I implore you, as a leader, we are here to support you and your work. Ladies, thank you so much. Cathy, yes.
You know, I have a burden for college,
Yes.
for college students.
Yes.
Okay. And I think a lot of, we can't overlook that these issues are prevalent on campuses, also in the online world as well. Yeah. And please, if you are a college student and you've been listening today, or something doesn't feel right, it's because it's not right. Mm-hmm. Reach out to Cathy, Dr. Cathy, or Helen, or Renee. We are available. You may not see us with a strong presence on social media because that's just our temperaments. You may have a few smiling pictures. Helen's not on there at all, but we're very effective behind the scenes, and that's where I'm most comfortable doing my work. And I'm one of those people that will be up at 2, willing to sit with you between Absolutely. 1, 2, and 3 in the morning while you're in crisis. And I can refer you to individuals who are licensed, certified, social workers, psychologists, counselors, coaches who also do this work. So please don't suffer in silence. We are here. We are here to support you and help you. And Keslin, Dr. Keslin will provide our details.
Absolutely. Just make contact with me. I'm primarily on Facebook, a little bit of Instagram. Cathy, you're primarily on Instagram?
No, mate. Well, I've got a presence on both, but I'm not really
okay.
active.
Okay. All right. And then Helen is not on social media. So,
I
but
do it vicariously through the two of you.
yes,
Yes.
yes. At our
Yes.
3, 4. So Cathy is up thinking and praying with everybody at 1, 2, and 3, and then we send our text group chats at 3, 4, 5, and 6,
And we respond.
and we respond, and then the day begins. So we are here. We're available. Let me just thank you, ladies, for being on this first of many conversations about relationships. Um, Relationships, realities, and research. Thank you so much. For those of you who are going to be joining us, please, we have a wonderfully informative month about domestic violence. Today, I just wanted to introduce my friends, and I wanted to share just the goal was just to share some information about the realities of domestic violence. But next week, the goal is to talk about the faith community, domestic violence in faith communities, and faith and communities. And so I have a list of special guests. You'll have to join us next week to see who we're going to have. On the third week of the month, we're going to talk about domestic violence in the workplace and in the military. Domestic violence in the workplace and the military. And then week 4, we're talking about domestic violence resources for communities and for advocates. And in that week, we're also going to talk about dating violence and domestic violence as it presents itself for our young people. And so hopefully everybody will get something from the presentations. Ladies, you are wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Gary Jones, for being our man behind the scenes who's doing some of the heavy lifting. We thank you so much. That's it for today. Please be safe, be blessed, and be well. And for those of you who are doing research, remember the doctoral degree is not merely a degree of intelligence. It is a degree of persistence, and we need you to persist. Why? Because your research matters. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.